My ex-mentor Sylvie sabotaged my flights, my EP, even stole my tracks for her Berlin set. So I walked on stage mid-show, dropped all the receipts, and watched security drag her off while the whole crowd booed. You ever have one of those moments where you just know you're getting screwed over, and there's nothing you can do about it? That was me, standing at gate 47 in Newark Airport, my carry-on digging into my shoulder, my heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the announcements. My name's Lena Morris. I'm 26 years old, born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut, though lately, I live out of whatever couch or tour van will have me. Music's my thing. Synthpop, to be exact. Not mainstream. Not yet. But tonight was supposed to be the start of something huge, Berlin, Indie Summit, a headliner slot that people would remember. Except I wasn't getting on the plane. I'm sorry, miss, the woman behind the counter said, not looking all that sorry. Your flight's been cancelled. I blinked. No, that's not possible. I have the confirmation right here. I shoved my phone toward her. It was still glowing with the email from 3 hours ago, Flight 814 to Berlin, confirmed. She barely glanced at it. You'll need to take that up with customer service. Behind me, the line groaned. I stepped aside, my throat closing up. This couldn't be happening. My whole career, the one I'd been bleeding for, was riding on that show. I tapped out a number without thinking. She picked up on the second ring. Lena. Sylvie chirped, too bright, too fake. Are you at the airport? Yeah, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My flight's cancelled. There was a beat. Just a tiny hesitation. Most people wouldn't have caught it. I did. Oh no, Sylvie said. That's awful. You must be freaking out. Is there anything I can do? You could stop lying, I thought. I swallowed the anger bubbling up. You sure you didn't hear anything about this? Me? She let out a breathy laugh. Of course not. What could I possibly have to do with it? Everything in my gut told me she was lying. Sylvie loved control. Loved being the one to make or break people, especially when those people used to trust her. I'll figure it out, I muttered and hung up before she could fake another word of sympathy. I slumped into a hard plastic seat, clutching my bag like it was a lifeline. Around me, the airport buzzed, families dragging sleepy kids, businessmen yelling into phones, lovers kissing goodbye. All normal. All fine. Except me. Sitting there like a fool, watching my shot at everything slip away. And the worst part? This wasn't even the first time. A year ago, Sylvie was my biggest champion. My mentor. The one who believed in me. She produced my early tracks, helped me book gigs, got me in rooms with people who could actually make things happen. I owed her everything. Or at least, I thought I did. But little by little, things shifted. My beats got better, and suddenly Sylvie had notes. My crowds got bigger, and suddenly Sylvie was too busy to show up. Every little win I had seemed to chip away at her smile until it barely reached her eyes. And now this. I stared at the departures board. Flight after flight flipped to on time in green letters. Except mine. Flight 814, cancelled. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood. She wanted me to crumble. To miss the biggest break of my life while she stood somewhere, smiling to herself. Fine. Let her think she won. I sat up straighter, heart racing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Maybe I wouldn't be on that flight. Maybe Sylvie thought she'd buried me for good. But I'd find another way. I always did. That was about a year ago, back when I still thought Sylvie was in my corner. It was after a gig at the Red Lion Lounge in Brooklyn, the kind of place where the floor's sticky, the air's too thick, and the only thing colder than the beer is the crowd. Except that night, the crowd wasn't cold. They were on fire. I had barely finished the last track, sweat dripping into my eyes, when the place exploded. People were stomping their feet, whistling, chanting my name like I was somebody. I remember gripping the mic so tight my knuckles ached, standing there stunned, grinning like an idiot. I thought this was it. The start of something big. After I finally got off stage, I ducked behind the heavy black curtain into the cramped little backstage area. My hands were still shaking from the adrenaline. I was buzzing, like my whole body was an amp cranked to 11. I heard voices through the wall, thin drywall, easy to hear everything if you listened close. It was Sylvie and some guy. I recognized his voice, one of the local bookers. "She's just a phase," Sylvie said, low and sharp. "Her sounds lucky, not lasting. She'll burn out before the end of the year." The words hit harder than any bad review ever could. I froze, my sweaty hair clinging to my neck. For a second, I thought I misheard. Maybe she meant someone else. Maybe it was a joke. But then she laughed, a quick, mean little sound I'd never heard from her before. "She's cute now. The neon hair, the sad beats, the broken girl shtick. But it's not serious music. It's not going to stick." The guy mumbled something back, I couldn't even make it out. My ears were ringing too hard. I sat down on a battered folding chair, feeling like somebody had just pulled the floor out from under me. Lucky. Not lasting. She didn't believe in me. Not really. Maybe she never did. Back then, I had spent every spare minute locked in my apartment, hunched over my busted laptop, teaching myself how to mix and master tracks that nobody else would touch. Every synth line, every vocal track, every beat, it was mine. No producers. No expensive studios. Just me, my headphones, and a second-hand MIDI keyboard I bought off Craigslist. Sylvie wasn't there for the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. tweaking one stupid snare sound. She wasn't there when I played for empty rooms, pouring out my soul to 3 drunk guys and a bartender who didn't even bother to clap. But somehow, in her eyes, it was luck. That night, I plastered on a fake smile and thanked her for coming, for supporting me, for believing in me. She smiled back just as fake, kissed my cheek, and told me I was gonna be huge. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But sitting there in the dark backstage corner, listening to her tear me down when she thought I couldn't hear, something inside me cracked. It didn't shatter, not right away. Not like in the movies where you flip a table and storm out. It was quieter than that. Slower. Like a hairline fracture running deep under the surface, invisible at first, but growing with every step, every word, every fake smile that came after. That was the night the seed of distrust got planted. And even though I tried to ignore it, to keep pushing forward like nothing happened, it took root anyway. It always does. 9 months ago, things were finally picking up. My EP, Synthetic Ghosts, was done. 5 tracks. My best work yet. I poured everything into it, sleepless nights, overdraft fees, hours tweaking tiny sound bites until I thought I'd lose my mind. I submitted it to StreamVault, one of the biggest indie platforms. If they picked it up, it would mean features, playlists, real exposure. I remember hitting upload with shaking hands, feeling like this was it. This was my shot. And then the rejection email landed in my inbox. I sat on the edge of my bed, reading it twice. "We regret to inform you that your submission could not be considered due to incomplete content." Incomplete? I scrambled back to my laptop, heart racing. Pulled up the file I uploaded. Half the tracks were missing. Not corrupted. Not damaged. Missing. Like they'd never existed. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the mouse. I opened the file's metadata, a habit I picked up after getting burned once before. I clicked through nervously, praying it was some stupid glitch. There it was. Last modified, not by me. By Sylvie. Her name sat right there in the file properties like a smoking gun. I stared at it for a long time, numb. Then I grabbed my phone and called her. She answered on the second ring, all breathless and casual like she hadn't just wrecked 6 months of my life. "Oh, hey, Lena. Everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Did you mess with my EP files?" There was a pause, just long enough for me to know she already had an answer ready. "What? No. Why would I? Oh, wait, you mean the StreamVault thing? Must have been a tech glitch or something. You know how buggy those platforms are." She laughed like it was no big deal. Like she hadn't just thrown a grenade into everything I'd worked for. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But all I said was, right. Tech glitch. Because if there's one thing Sylvie knew how to do, it was gaslight you until you didn't even trust your own memories. Later that week, when I brought it up to Devin, our so-called manager, he just sighed and rubbed his face like I was making his life harder. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," he said. Sylvie's got a lot on her plate too. Let's just focus on the next project, yeah? And just like that, it was swept under the rug. Another glitch. Another misunderstanding. I nodded, smiled, played nice. But inside, something hard and cold started building. A quiet little voice that said, "They're not on your side." Not really. I should have listened to it louder back then. But I didn't. I still wanted to believe I could make it if I just worked harder, stayed smarter, pushed through. I didn't realize yet that it wasn't about hard work. It was about who was waiting to stab you when you looked the other way. 6 months ago, I went to one of those music networking events in downtown Manhattan. The kind where the drinks are overpriced, the lights are too low, and everyone's pretending they're not desperate to be discovered. I wasn't even supposed to go. Devin had practically begged me. "You gotta show face, Lena. These people could open doors." So I dragged myself there, wearing the only leather jacket I owned that didn't smell like stale beer, clutching a watered-down gin and tonic like a life raft. That's when I saw Sylvie, already posted up near the stage, chatting it up with a bunch of label reps. She caught my eye, smiled, and waved me over like we were still best friends. I should have known better. I joined the little circle just in time to hear one of the execs ask her, "So, tell me about your protégé." "Lena, right?" Sylvie laughed, not mean, not cruel. Almost fond. "If you didn't know better." "Oh, Lena's brilliant," she said, clinking her glass against the guy's. "Really creative. A real original voice." I smiled, stupidly flattered for half a second. Then she kept going. "But she tends to overextend herself," Sylvie said, tilting her head like she was sharing a private joke. "She's got a lot of raw energy. Just needs more polish, you know?" The rep nodded thoughtfully, sipping his drink. I felt my stomach twist. "She's still figuring out her sound," Sylvie added, like it was a compliment. Like it wasn't a slow knife sliding under my ribs in front of the one person who might have actually mattered. I wanted to say something. Wanted to step in, correct her, defend myself. But standing there, all I could do was laugh weakly and take another sip of my drink, pretending it didn't sting. 2 weeks later, the same label rep who had been all smiles that night stopped answering my emails. Stopped taking Devin's calls. A meeting that had been definitely happening soon just didn't. And I knew exactly why. Sylvie didn't have to kill my chances outright. She didn't have to sabotage me with anything obvious or messy. All she had to do was plant the right seed of doubt. Let it grow. She's talented, but. She's creative, but. She's passionate, but. That's all it took. And the worst part was, no one else saw it. Not Devin. Not the other artists. Not even me, not right away. Because she smiled when she said it. Because she made it sound like she cared. And when you're desperate enough, you believe the people who smile at you. Even when they're cutting your throat with it. 3 months ago, I got my dream slot at the Verona Indie Showcase in Philly. It wasn't Coachella or anything, but for people in my lane, underground synth-pop, darkwave kids, neon nobodies, it was huge. Labels sent scouts. Bloggers hovered like vultures. One good set, and you could change your whole life. I spent a week building the set list, layering the transitions, tweaking my synth patches until my ears buzzed. I even splurged on a new pair of platform boots, just to feel a little taller, a little more invincible. Everything was ready. Or so I thought. The night of the show, I got there early, my USB drive tucked safe inside my jacket. I checked in with the tech crew, handed it over like it was made of glass. "Everything's pre-mixed and sequenced," I told the guy at the booth. "Just load it straight." He nodded, tapping away at his laptop. I watched the little loading bar creep across the screen. Then he frowned. You sure this is the right drive?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah." "Why?" He spun the laptop around. My folder was empty. No tracks. No files. Nothing. I yanked the drive out, plugged it into my own laptop. Same thing. Access revoked. Maybe a glitch, the tech offered weakly. But I knew better. I felt it deep in my bones, that sick, sinking feeling like when you see blue lights flashing in your rearview mirror. I ran backstage, my boots thudding against the concrete. And that's when I saw her. Sylvie. Up on stage. microphone in hand. Smiling. I pushed through the crowd, heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe. The first notes blared through the speakers, my notes. It was my music. Remixed just enough that only someone who knew every beat, every bass line by heart would recognize it. The synth hooks. The bass drops. Even the vocal samples I'd agonized over, chopped and glitched just right. All hers now. The crowd ate it up. They danced, cheered, screamed. Flashes popped from a dozen phones. I stood at the edge of the stage, frozen, feeling like I was watching my own body burn and not being able to do anything about it. She didn't even look at me. Didn't flinch. Just basked in the applause that should have been mine. By the time Devin found me backstage, the set was over. Sylvie was all smiles, hugging people, handing out USBs with her new tracks. Miscommunication, she said when Devin cornered her later. I thought Lena wasn't showing. Tech guy said there was an issue with her files. I just filled in. The show must go on, right? She winked at me when she said it. Like she thought it was funny. Devin pulled me aside afterward, his voice low and apologetic. Look, it sucks, but it's over. Don't make a scene. We'll find you another shot. Another shot. Like another shot would erase the sound of my own beats booming from someone else's set while I stood backstage, useless. I didn't say a word. Just packed up my dead USB drive and walked out into the cold, my boots scuffing the sidewalk, the neon lights blurring into a smear of blue and pink and hurt. I told myself I'd bounce back. I always did. But deep down, a little voice whispered that something had shifted. That maybe, no matter how hard I fought, Sylvie was always going to be one step ahead, because she was willing to do the one thing I wasn't. Steal. Present day. Sylvie touched down in Berlin like she was royalty. She posted a selfie at the airport, big sunglasses, a leather jacket, her caption dripping with fake humility. Can't believe I'm headlining the Indie Summit. Dreams do come true. I saw it while I was sitting in the back of a car racing across the Autobahn, exhaustion buzzing under my skin. But I just smiled. Let her think she won. Sylvie showed up at the venue with all the confidence of someone who thought they owned the place. She shook hands, kissed cheeks, posed for pictures like a queen accepting her crown. I watched from the wings, hidden in the crowd, my hoodie pulled low over my face. She grabbed the mic before her set, flashing that same rehearsed smile I knew too well. I'm so honored to be here tonight, she gushed, her voice syrupy. Music saved my life, and I'm just so grateful to share my sound with all of you. The crowd clapped politely. They didn't know yet. Not yet. Sylvie started talking about her journey, spinning the same tired story she always did, the self-made woman narrative, the overnight success that took so much sacrifice. She even name-dropped a few of my old tracks, claiming they were inspired by long nights in the studio finding her voice. I bit down on the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Let her dig her own grave. And then the organizer walked on stage. He smiled at her. Real friendly. But there was something sharp under it, something Sylvie didn't catch. We've got a special surprise tonight, he said, his voice booming through the speakers. An artist you won't want to miss. Sylvie's smile faltered just for a second. Just a flicker. But I saw it. The crowd stirred, murmuring, curious. Sylvie turned toward the side stage, trying to keep smiling, trying to hold on to her perfect little world. But it was slipping, and she knew it. She just didn't know how bad it was about to get. The lights dimmed. The crowd leaned forward, buzzing with curiosity. Sylvie shifted on stage, her smile starting to crack around the edges. She glanced toward the wings again, probably expecting another DJ, some harmless opener she could fake clap for. Then the first notes played. My notes. The speakers roared to life with a beat no one had ever heard before, because I hadn't released it yet. A deep synth line, glitchy and haunting, rolled over the room like a slow building storm. Sylvie froze. You could see the moment it hit her, the way her whole body stiffened, the way her hand clutched the mic a little too tight. And then my voice came through the speakers. Not live. A recording. Some people build themselves up by stealing from others, I said, my voice clear and cold, echoing through the hall. But the truth always finds a stage. The crowd gasped. Phones shot into the air. People turned to each other, whispering. Sylvie stepped back, her face pale under the stage lights. And then I walked out. Black boots. Black hoodie. No theatrics. Just me and the truth. For half a second, Sylvie's mouth moved like she was trying to say something. But no words came out. I stepped up to the mic, calm, steady. "Hi," I said, my voice slicing clean through the stunned silence. "My name's Lena Morris. Some of you might know my work. Some of you might not. But either way, you deserve to hear the real story." The organizer handed me a folder, thick with printed receipts, screenshots, timestamps. I held it up. "This is the proof," I said. "Metadata from stolen tracks. Deleted demos. Altered set lists. Backhanded sabotage dressed up as mentorship." I paused, letting the words sink in. "It's all here." Sylvie tried to laugh it off. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice too high, too fake. "This is just some personal drama. Not important." But the organizer cut in before she could say anything else. "We've vetted it," he said, stepping up beside me. "Every single file. Every single claim. It's real." He turned to her, his face stone cold now. "And we don't tolerate fraud at this summit." Two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, moving with quiet finality. Sylvie's face crumpled, not in sadness, but in panic. She tried to argue, reaching for the mic again, but the organizer simply shook his head. "Your set is cancelled," he said. And just like that, it was over. Sylvie was escorted off stage to a scattering of boos. Her heels clicked against the wood floor, too fast, too loud, like she couldn't get away quick enough. The crowd turned back to me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt seen. I felt real. A beat of silence. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. Until the whole hall shook with it. I smiled, lifting the mic one more time. "This one's for the ones who kept going," I said. Even when someone tried to cut the power. And I launched into my new track, a pulsing, defiant anthem that rattled the walls. I didn't look for Sylvie again. She wasn't my story anymore. I was. Sylvie got back to the States before I did. Not that it mattered. The damage was already done. The clips from Berlin blew up faster than either of us expected. My intro speech went viral, not just in the synth-pop world, but everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, music blogs. Even some of the bigger outlets picked it up. Former mentor exposed for sabotage mid-show. There were reaction videos. Memes. Deep dive threads picking apart every fake smile, every side-eye Sylvie ever gave me on stage. At first, she tried to fight it. Posted a shaky Instagram story about how creative communities should lift each other up, not tear each other down. She looked tired, puffy-eyed, like she hadn't slept. The comments section ate her alive. Liar. Thief. Fake. After that, she went quiet. No posts. No selfies. No tour announcements. I heard from a few mutuals that labels pulled out of deals. Sponsors dropped her. Gigs dried up almost overnight. It wasn't even a coordinated thing, people just didn't want to touch her. Too risky. Too radioactive. One of the last texts I ever got about her was from Devin, of all people. Guess who's blacklisted from the next 3 showcases? Karma's a bitch. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. A month later, I heard she tried to spin a comeback, some half-hearted announcement about a new chapter and healing through art. But it flopped. Nobody wanted another redemption arc. Not from her. I guess the final nail came when a major indie label she'd been chasing for years released a public statement: "We do not align ourselves with artists who engage in unethical practices." Short. Brutal. Final. The kind of thing you don't bounce back from. Sylvie, the woman who once walked into every room like she owned it, was officially persona non grata. I imagined her sitting in her overpriced apartment, scrolling through her mentions, watching herself disappear in real time. Maybe she kept telling herself it was just a bad phase. That people would forget. That next year, she'd be back on stage, smiling like nothing happened. But deep down, she had to know. She wasn't the main character anymore. Not even close. She was the cautionary tale. The ghost. And the funny thing was, I didn't even hate her anymore. I didn't feel much of anything. She had spent so long trying to erase me, trying to steal my voice, my spotlight, my future. And in the end, the only person she managed to erase was herself. Now I barely think about her. I'm back in New Haven, tucked away in a little studio space I carved out of an old warehouse. The walls are soundproofed, covered in foam panels and old gig posters. Neon lights run along the ceiling, glowing soft blue and purple, just enough to make the room feel alive at night. I sit at my mixer, headphones around my neck, a half-finished beat pulsing quietly through the monitors. There's a stack of offers next to me, collaborations, tour invites, interviews. Some names I used to daydream about working with. Some names I used to think would never even learn mine. I still haven't answered most of them. I'm not rushing. Not this time. The world's finally listening, but I'm doing it on my terms now. No more begging for scraps. No more letting someone else tell my story louder than I could tell it myself. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch a glimpse of someone, through the narrow window by the door. A figure, half hidden in the shadows of the parking lot. For a second, the old panic rises up, the fear that maybe Sylvie isn't as erased as I thought. That maybe ghosts don't disappear when you beat them. Maybe they linger. I turn back to the mixer, twisting a knob, letting the bass thump heavier in my headphones. I'm not afraid of ghosts. Not anymore. They can watch. They can hover. They can wish they were still part of the story. But they don't get to write it. That's mine now. I lay down another synth line, sharp and bright, and smile to myself as it cuts clean through the beat. Earned. Every note of it. And I'm not letting go.